Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today, meteors have crashed into our world and changed it forever as the majority of the population was wiped out. But their survivors gained incredible superpowers. Many used their abilities for good, seeing themselves as saviors of humanity. Others exerted force to secure fame, fortune, and control. And a few have yet to reveal their powers. Now, civilization as we know it has been laid to waste, and all that's left is a battleground for heroes and villains, which is a collectible, customizable deck battle game for 2 to 6 players. It plays in 15 minutes and is for ages 10 and up and published by Netty Games. Now, it's on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works, and I'll see you on the other side. This is a Kickstarter preview, so all the art and components you see here are not final, they're prototypes. You're going to want to check the Kickstarter link in the description of this video to see all the updated art and components. Now there's 6 different heroes or villains that you can select. At the beginning of the game, you're going to select one of these cards, and you're going to decide whether it's going to be on the hero side, like you see here. Hero is on all 6 of these, and each of these is going to give you a one-time special ability to use throughout the game. Now on the other sides of those are the villain sides, and they also have an ability that you can use, so you get to choose one of these and choose the side whether you're going to be a hero or a villain. So I selected Super Speed and I placed it on the hero side. You're going to get a 24 card deck corresponding with this hero, and you'll know because the names of the cards correspond with the color of your special ability there for Super Speed, and because it also has that character's logo on the card. This is based off of the Rad Engine gameplay. Now this is a trademark, and this deck of 24 cards is both your health and your source of power, and you're going to secure victory by depleting your opponent's deck before they deplete yours. Now you can play this game 2 to 6 players. I'm going to focus on a 2-player game now, but I'll show you the other different methods of playing with more players at the end of this video. Now the standard game comes with 2 beautifully illustrated play mats, and they both have different artwork on them, and this is what those will look like. And the deluxe version comes with these really cool miniatures, and these can be used to help track your energy throughout the game. Now at the beginning of the game you start with 4 cards, but at the beginning of each turn you'll draw 1 card, but you cannot have more than 5 in your hand. Then you have 4 energy to spend every turn by default. And there's different things you can do with this energy. One is you could play a card. Now the amount of energy that it costs, and right here, this is 1. So this cost me 1 energy, but this is just playing a card. That's not activating it. If I wanted to activate it, I'd have to spend this energy again. So I've already spent 1 of my 4 energy. If I wanted to activate this, I'd spend 1 more energy, and I would do what the text says on the card. In this case, it would allow me to deplete 1 card from the opponent's deck and put it into their stockpile, which essentially is like a face-up discard pile, if you will. I'd then be able to draw 1 more from my deck, and I'd gain an energy. So I actually spent 2 energy, 1 to play this, 1 to activate it, but I gained 1 back, so I still have 3 energy left. Now there's different types of cards. The A there signifies that this is an assault, which essentially is aggressive powers that deplete a player's deck. Now when you activate one of these cards, like we just did, you then move that card to your stockpile, which again is sort of a face-up discard pile that you might be able to access through other cards throughout the game. For example, Flurry allows you to draw the top 2 cards of your stockpile, where Jab allows you to find an assault in your stockpile. Like one of these, you get to look for it and draw it. Now I still have 3 energy left, so maybe I play this card for 1 energy, which is a tactics card. Now tactics are cards that basically give you utility powers and different strategic advantages. And maybe for my last 2 energy, I play this card. It's a weapon card, and these are unique superpowered specific powers that have a scalable effect. Now again, I spent energy to play them, but you have to spend that energy again if you wanted to actually use the ability on this card. So in your 4 energy that I've already spent, it'd now be the next player's turn, and again, you're either using that energy to play cards or to activate them. Now also remember, you have this special ability that you can use once per game. This is Warp. I could gain 2 energy and it doesn't cost me anything, but once I use it, this gets removed from the game entirely. Now there's one more type of card I haven't shown you yet. These are minions with the M there. And these are versatile allies that provide you with multiple choices. Like you could deplete 5 or restore 5 and then purge all cards from a stockpile. For example, while restoring, you could restore 5 cards. It takes the top 5 cards from your stockpile and puts them at the bottom of your deck, again, giving you more health back, essentially. And when you purge all cards from a stockpile, basically you could take cards from somebody else's stockpile and place it into what they known as the void, which means they're not cards that can be brought back into the game. And just to show you that this card belongs to the deck for fire control. This one is the villain side. So let's look at some of the other cards in the Super Speed deck, which is the one we started with. This tactic card allows you to discard a player's card at random and then gain energy, and you can optionally draw a card. With this weapon card allows you to deplete X, and X is the number of Super Speed and Super Strength cards you have in play. Now, we started with, I told you, a set up deck for, in this case, Super Speed. But there are ways that you can customize decks at the beginning of the game in an advanced way to play. I'll go over more of that later, but these are one of the cards that plays off that because these are Super Speed cards, but you might end up getting Super Strength cards. For example, this is a Super Strength card. You may have drafted this from another deck at the beginning of the game, but more on that later. And Pause allows you to repel another card you own, which essentially is picking it up from your play area and putting it back in your hand. And if you did, you get to counter a card in play, and countering allows you to take a card in play and move it to the top of its owner's stockpile. In other words, removing cards from other players' play areas. Now that's pretty much how you play. Now, if there are no cards left in your deck during opponent's turn, you're defeated. So if you're playing a 2-player game, the other player would win. If you're playing with more than 2 players, the last player standing wins. So let me show you some of the other unique cards from the different heroes/villains, like these are from the Vigilante Justice. These are from the Cyborg Upgrade character. These are from the Fire Control deck. These are from the Dark Magic deck. These are from the Super Strength deck. And as we mentioned earlier, all of the different heroes and villains have special abilities. Like this one says, stun all of a player's cards in play. So the other player would have to stun all their cards, putting them sideways, and they're not available to be activated till the end of their next turn, where they'll all turn back to normal. Now so far I've talked about the standard 2-player game and multiplayer game where you use a pre-constructed deck for that specific hero or villain. But there's ways that you can customize with deck construction. And so you could take cards from different superheroes. Now you'll build a 24-card deck, but for every different superhero that you take a card from, you have 1 less card in your deck. So if you take from 3 different superheroes, you're only gonna have 22 cards. Remember, that is not only your hand, the cards that you can access to play, but it's also your health. You can also play a constructed match with 2 players, and that's creating a custom deck, as I mentioned, but also consisting of 4 cards from any superpower. And then between games, you can swap some of those cards from your reserve into your normal deck, and you play the first player to win 2 games wins the match. You can also play a team battle with 4 or 6 players, and there's an equal amount of players on the teams, and the teammates can see one another's hands and discuss strategies, but each player takes their own turn as normal. Now when a player is defeated, they're out of the game, but a team doesn't lose until all its players on its team are defeated. You can also play Super Boss, which is a 3-player intermediate variant. Now 2 players will play on the same team using the same team rules I just mentioned, using pre-constructed decks. Now the other player is the Super Boss and playing against the other team of 2, and they're gonna shuffle 2 superpowered decks together, and they get to start with 2 hero or villain cards in play. They get to draw 2 cards per turn, and they start with 5 energy each turn instead of 4. Now you can play in tournaments as well, 4 to 8 players, and you can use a single elimination bracket style, or you could do a round robin tournament as well. You could also do a super sealed, which essentially is taking a certain amount of decks depending on the players, shuffling them all into one deck, dealing them out face down, and players construct a deck and a reserve pile. There's also a 4-player draft. In this case, you'll use 5 different superpowers as seen here, and you'll shuffle all these together, keeping the cards face down. Then you'll create pods, and these are essentially decks of 8 cards from that shuffled deck. And each player is going to select a card from this pod, and then they are going to pass the rest of that pod to the next player, which means they'll receive it, and you keep doing this until all of those pods are completely drafted out, which means every player is going to have 8 cards. You'll do this again for 2 more sets of pods like this, but alternating the direction that you're drafting each time you start with new sets of pods. So as you can see, the game has simple mechanisms but lots of depth with the card play and all the different variant formats. Well, there you have heroes and villains, and as I showed in the overview, it's an easy game to get into and play, and has tons of ways to customize your deck and many modes with teams, tournaments, and drafting. Now if you'd like to see all the final art and components and all the different pledge levels available, you can click the link below me in the description of this video. Now that's going to take you directly to the Kickstarter project page, and I'm sure that Netty Games would love your support.